All right, so I believe we are live and I see the people are joining in. While we do the intro, people have time to kind of join in. And again, like for everyone, we'll share the recording after. So if they miss anything, they will be able to see what they have missed. I'll just get started with this. Well, welcome everyone. Really excited to kick off our webinar today. And we have a very exciting topic. And, all this time, the webinars that you have attended so far, you have seen that we talk a lot about content. How do you produce high quality content, people first content, and everything happening with AI? Obviously, it's generating quality content is very important more than ever. So today we'll talk about something different than how do you produce quality content. We'll talk about you do all of the work to drive traffic to your website. But then what do you do after? How do you convert those people to your actual client or, generate leads from there? And we have Cassandra here from Busy Sites. She will be joining us to talk you through what they find works for their client. So I don't want to jump into your topic, but yeah, you're gonna quickly do an intro and talk about what Busy Sites does.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to talk to you guys today. I think that's a great explanation you gave, Nizam. Really, our goal is, like you said, people have gone through the work of creating this really high quality content. They've done their research. They've used your team probably. And now, it gets thrown onto a page, copy pasted, right? And how are they going to actually make sure that those people, like you said, are turning into paying customers? Just as you mentioned, a quick background of Busy Sites. We're a web design and marketing firm, so we help clients with this day in and day out. We use a lot of analytics, which we'll talk about through our talk today, to really see what's working and what's not, heat mapping, things like that. So we'll dig into all of that today.
Awesome, really excited to kick this off. As a reminder, you can obviously use the chat feature to ask your questions, or there's a dedicated Q&A features as well, which you could utilize to ask any questions that you might have. We will take all the questions towards the end, and this webinar will be a little bit tactical. I strongly believe that you will leave the webinar from both Cassandra and my side with some of the actionable item towards the end, which you can implement literally right away to your websites or the project that you're working on. Since most of you are marketer, so here's your hook. Stay tuned for the obviously the presentation that Cassandra is going to do. Also towards the end, we'll talk about what are the tools that you could use. What are the tools they could use to do track your visitors, so something not a track, but see what they're doing on the site. As well as we'll also dig deeper into Google Optimizer, although they're sunsetting it. But while still there, how you could utilize it to do A/B test and increase your conversion. But that is something we'll also touch on towards the end. And I know that Cassandra has awesome slides, which we'll share in a bit. So yeah, I'll let you get started. You should be able to share your screen and we'll take it from there.
All right, perfect. So as Nizam mentioned, many of you here joining us today are marketers, whether you're brand new to it or you've been doing it for decades. I want to see if this situation feels familiar to you. So by most accounts, your marketing efforts are performing great. Your social media engagement's increasing, your ads are getting a lot of clicks, your blog has a lot of traffic, but there just is not any new business coming in. There's no new leads, there's no sales, whatever your goal is, it's just not happening. People are making it to your website and they're stopping there. They're not cutting it through or making it through the finish line. We've all heard that phrase, if you build it, they will come. But then what? We need people to play the game. We need them to interact with our business and then most importantly, convert into paying customers. So my goal today, as Nizam mentioned, is not to discuss the SEO aspects of content structure. There's many. If you've been doing this for a while, you know that. Our assumption here is really that you have already gotten them to your website, whether that's through organic or paid marketing. But now, how do all of your hard-earned website visitors turn into revenue to make all that investment worth it? That's why we're talking about content infrastructure. So for the purposes of our discussion today, when I talk about content infrastructure, I'm referring to the basic framework of the information on your website. So how do you take the content, the media, the calls to action for your page, and structure it into something that effectively converts website visitors into paying customers? your website's content infrastructure is really the number one player in what makes your website effective. But a lot of times we stop at creating the content and then we don't go past that. So what do I mean when I say effective? Well-structured content has been shown to have a difference in improving organic rankings. Like we talked about, there's a lot of elements of SEO that come into this. Decreasing bounce rates, increasing time on your website, increasing interaction with your content, and most importantly, increasing conversions. So let's look at a quick example. Both pages displayed here, A and B, they have the exact same copy on the page. Of these two examples, which page are your users more likely to spend time on? Which page is more likely to satisfy the user's questions? And which page is more likely to convert? You might look at these two examples and hopefully you're clearly able to guess which one is the better option for your page layout, but can you articulate why? That's what I want to break down next. And as Nizam said, we're big on having actionable items here. So by the time we're done today, you're going to walk away with a very clear checklist of what to consider when you are laying out content on your page. First, I have a pop quiz. If you've got the chat there, if you have access to it, I want you guys to type in the chat what you believe the attention span is of a goldfish. No Googling. While everyone types in their answers, Nizam, do you want to take a guess? Goldfish attention span. What do you think it is? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, I would say 5 to 6 seconds, but I see that people are responding. So 3 second, 2 second, 0.05. That's interesting. 10 second. Something outrageous.
I like, right, but this is the thing, right? Goldfish are notorious for having short attention spans. We all know it's ridiculously short, right? It's 9 seconds. There's a couple people that got close. I saw a 10-second in there. It's probably the closest one. All right, question number 2. Now type in the chat what you believe the attention span of an average human is. No cheating, no Googling. What do we think it is?
Oh, wow. We said we get agency. Okay. I take my time, look through the site, maybe 20 minutes. But yeah, I'm joking.
You're the unicorn.
No, I don't. I just go to a page and I'm like, as soon as I don't see what I'm looking for, I have the back button to go back to the search result, go to the next one, keep going to. And most of the time, which is interesting, I even go to the number page like on Google or Bing, mostly use Google, page 2 to see the result as well, like to find relevant result. But
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, you're a lot nicer than me. I don't even, I open the search result, whichever search I want to click on in a new tab, because I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to go back to my search result at some point. An idea.
I would give them the benefit of doubt. So maybe they have the answer. I see that people are saying 30 second, 45 second, 90 second, 6 seconds, 25 seconds. So a little higher and few lower ends.
So I hate to break it to you guys, but in 2015, so this is a while ago, and it's been shown, there's been more recent studies, people think it's getting shorter, but we'll go with 2015 because that's the most recent reliable study. 8 seconds, the average attention span of humans nowadays. This is the average time before a person loses concentration. Right, so their brain goes somewhere else. They're Nizam, they click the back button. They're me, they go back to the other tab and they start looking somewhere else, right? Yeah, I like what Alex said in the chat. Ouch, it's painful. So what does that mean for you? That means you have to give your users what they want fast, super fast. Aside from that 8-second attention span that we just discussed, it has been shown time and time again that the period of time before they form an opinion about the website, before they make a judgment call, is less than 1 second. So they might stay on the site, but they've already formed an opinion about what they think about your business. So you might be providing all of the same information as the guy down the street, but if you're not doing it in a way that is A, catching their attention, and then B, satisfying them, in a matter of seconds they've lost focus and they've gone on to the next option. Now, on top of that, the average website user now only reads about 20% of the words on a page. So we have to make sure that users find that 20% that they care about the most. The way we do that is we keep it easy for them to skim, navigate, and act on your website. This really determines how much time your users have to spend before they find the answer to the question that they care about the most. So how do we do this? If you're on a computer, get ready to take screenshots. This is the first list you're going to want to save. We have some key factors of keeping your text readable or skimmable. I would say skimmability versus readability, but I don't think that's a word. So we're going to start with the basics. Make sure that the font on your website is easy to read. Simple, right? As a general rule, you want to avoid content being all uppercase because it's harder for our brain to process it as quickly. And yes, we're talking milliseconds, but as you saw, we only have 8 seconds total, right? So milliseconds matter here. We don't want to use too narrow of a font, too thin of a font. Those are harder to read. And most importantly, ensure that the color is providing contrast to the background. Now, we also know in North America, at least, users read top to bottom and then left to right. So we want to structure our content that way by priority. Most important thing, make sure they're going to see that first. Then we want to look at the menu and heading hierarchy to indicate topic groups to your users. So I should easily be able to go see different groups of information, find the page that I'm looking for, and then the section on the page that interests me the most. We want to break up our copy into evenly spaced short paragraphs, and you might be thinking, really, are we talking about spacing right now? But we are, because even something as simple as text size and spacing has been shown to increase conversion rates by massive amounts. There was a recent case study done that showed one company had an improvement of 133% on their form conversion just by changing the text size and the line height. On the same vein of spacing, we want to talk about the content width. So what is the ideal content width? If it's too long, it becomes overwhelming for those short attention spans. If it's too short, they don't really even find it easily with their eyes, and they just won't read the section. So our ideal content width is 55 to 100 characters. We also want to have consistent text alignment in similar sections. So just what I was talking about with making it easy for the eye to find. We don't want people to be hunting for where their eyes should go next in a section because, again, valuable time used up with that attention span. Using bold or italicized text to make a point stand out, and also using lists, bulleted lists, numbered lists to make points, the main points of a section stand out, will allow someone to see if that section's talking about what they want to know and then go back and read it in more detail. So now, once you have all of these items in place, how do we make sure that they act? This is where your calls to action come into play. So there's 3 main elements of calls to action to consider: the location, the design, and the text. So first, the location. We want to use that call to action in a place that makes sense. Halfway through a thought in your copy is not the place for a CTA. Rather, you want to be placing them at the beginning or the ends of sections. And you want to be using multiple as you scroll down the page. You never know where a user will pause, how far they're going to go. You'll have some users that are convinced to take action right in that first landing section of your site because maybe they've already done research about you before. And then you're going to have users that scroll halfway down the page and users that scroll all the way down the page. Make sure there's calls to action in place for all of those different types of navigation. Next, design. So the key here is to make it very obvious if something has an action connected to it, right? If something is linked to purchase, to contact, to call, and we don't want to be applying that same action to something that is not linked, right? That's where you end up with user confusion, frustration, clicking on things that they shouldn't be clicking on, which we'll talk about more. So for example, as a basic example, if an icon on a page has a hover effect where it changes color or size on hover, users are going to assume that is clickable, and they might become frustrated if it's not. So you want to use hover actions that are clearly indicating to your users that they can click there and only use them for those items. Then whatever color you choose, make sure it's easy to spot compared to the information around it. So not the same format or color as the regular text on the page, think bright, contrasting colors. And last, large and legible text works best. Again, we want it to stand out. Now, when you're talking about the actual words that go in your call to action, because we want to use large, legible text, it's important that we keep them short and sweet. You can also create a sense of urgency in the text, so using words like now or today. For example, sign up now call today, right? Those are going to have a higher conversion rate than just the sign up, which basically says sign up if you feel like it. If the CTA needs more context than what can be provided in that very short button, you can provide that in the text leading up to the CTA. So going back to our location, right? Putting it at the end of a section after you've already explained the action that you want them to take. And most importantly, ensure that the end result is what the user expects based on the text that the CTA says. So one example is if the CTA says contact us, but it is a click to call link, and the user doesn't realize that they're going to call you, that can throw them off and cause them to abandon the path altogether. So rather, you really want a click to call feature to say something like call now or call our phone number today. The gist of all these things is really the primary action you want your users to take should be the most obvious, clear element on the page. So now that we've talked about text formatting and calls to action, let's talk about the page structure as a whole. This is the next checklist you're going to want to take a picture of. We already talked about the first 7 items on the checklist. So font type, top to bottom, left to right, menus and headings, formatting, spaced paragraphs, short paragraphs, consistent alignment, and your content width. Talked about that before. We just want to have the list all in one place for you to view. So let's talk about a few final elements for success to round out your checklist. First is content segmenting. This is one of my favorite things. It can be accomplished in a few ways. One, you're probably seeing more and more, even in Google search results now, you're seeing toggled content, right? The Q&A feature. Tabbed or toggled content allows your users to quickly view content groups and click on the one that they care about the most. It allows their users to take in content in small digestible chunks, and again, only the part that they really want an answer for. Another way of content segmenting is visual breaks. So you'll see on the page here, using images, using video. All these things really help break up the content, show them a small digestible chunk at a time, and allow them to skim each section to find what they're looking for. Last, and most certainly not least, we want to make sure the page layout is responsive on all devices. So make sure that what you think is easy to find is actually easy to find on all devices. Hopefully everyone listening today already knows this one, but if we're going to have it be a master checklist, we have to include responsiveness, right? And then using those effective calls to action that we just outlined. So now, if you've done everything on this checklist and you believe you've designed a web page that is going to bring in paying customers, how do you analyze it to know if it's working? This is where your analytics come into play. So specifically, 2 kinds of analytics. Google Analytics to view the paths they're taking on and through your website. I think most of us probably use those. And second, heat mapping. This allows you to analyze how users are interacting with the page and then further optimize your content infrastructure. So let's start with Google Analytics. Again, this is the data that shows you the route that users are taking to get to your website and then how they're navigating through it. So questions to consider when you're looking at your analytics here. Are your users following your intended path? If they're falling out in that path somewhere before they convert, where are they falling out? So what are the biggest exit pages on your site? If it's not the contact page or your thank you page after they've submitted a contact or they've purchased something or they've booked with you, whatever that action might be, if it's some other page earlier in the process, you want to take a look at that top exit page and figure out how's the content laid out on that page. Is there things that need to be improved on that page? Do I have appropriate calls to action on my top exit pages? If people are falling out in the path early on, there's a reason why. That's where you want to look at your content infrastructure, your calls to action, and make sure that you really are optimizing that page to keep them moving on through your path. Next, and my personal favorite, is heat mapping. This one we don't see used quite as much, and I really think it should be just as important in most marketers' eyes as Google Analytics, is having data that will show you really the actions that users are taking once they have actually arrived to your website or to that landing page that you're hoping is going to convert. So similar to our Google Analytics, there's questions that we want to think about when we're looking at our heat mapping. One is, let's say you set up your heat mapping on your exit page that you're like, I cannot figure out what's going wrong on this page. One thing to look at is how far are users making it down the page. So if they're not making it all the way down the page, this can be a sign of a few things. You want to look at the page length, how the content is organized down the page, the order of the content, to determine if you need to make adjustments there. Now, alternatively, you do want to look at where people are clicking on the page along with the scrolling, because if they're not scrolling all the way down the page because they're clicking on a call to action higher on the page, great. Let's not panic about something that is actually a good thing, right? If they're clicking away from the page because they're going to the next spot in the path, that's a good thing. But if they're scrolling partway down, leaving the page, that's something we want to fix, right? Next would be, are they clicking on any areas that you didn't intend? Or are they not clicking at all? So heat mapping can really help to make critical design decisions, such as adding links where users clearly think there should be a link and maybe you didn't think that it looked like something that should be clickable, or alternatively changing the link to something else that the user is more interested in. So one way that we really love using this tool with our clients is, let's say they start offering a new service. And there's kind of a general services page, or maybe on the home page there's a section that's highlighting their key services, and they say, hey, we really want to swap out that button for one to this service instead. Before we go ahead and make that change for them, we're going to look at the heat mapping on their website and determine the level of activity that that link is receiving. If it's getting a ton of activity, we'll go back to the client and say, hey, you might not want to get rid of that button. Your users seem to really be interested in that topic. But now this button over here is hardly getting any traffic, so let's try swapping that one out and see if this new one that you want to add in does better. That way you can have more effective links on the page that your users are actually interested in. Now, on the highest click links on the page, are they exiting after they click those links? This can be a sign that maybe your call to actions are not quite what the user expects. So this could be a simple tweak of the wording on your call to action to make sure they know where they're going next on the page. It could be the introduction to the call to action, like we said, if the call to action needs more context, or even sometimes the title of the page that it's linking to. So maybe it is headed to the correct action and the users know that's the action they're headed to or think they're headed to. They get to the page and the heading on the page isn't clear, so now they're confused about where they are and they go back or they leave. Now, one note that I want to make sure, if you haven't used heat mapping before, to warn everyone about, is don't be alarmed by random clicks across the screen. So if you look at the screenshot we have here, you'll see random dots everywhere, right? Accidental clicks, people with touch screens that are dragging, right? We don't want to worry about the one-offs. What you're looking for is patterns. So if you start to see clusters of clicks in one area, that's where you want to look and say, okay, that's not clickable, so maybe we need to make a tweak and either make it clickable to something or change the design slightly so that you're not confusing your users. And lastly, if you're still not sure, you can always come to a company like us or Nizam, who he's going to show you some really great tools next to really better understand your content and what's happening there.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. This is very insightful. Obviously, one of the things that we noticed as well, just watching some of the recording in heat map, the same thing, like these random dots everywhere. It's like, okay, what are they doing? Why are they clicking?
All the time.
which is very typical.
I wish I could be in users' heads sometimes when they're clicking, but as long as I don't see 100 users doing it, I'm not going to worry too much.
Absolutely. So, all right. So I will. I'll talk about two specific tools. Again, we promised that we'll kind of let you have some of the tools or share the tools that we use internally as well, so they can go and implement those in your day to day. Obviously, Cassandra has shared some great tips and tricks, and as well to-dos for you to go literally implement that in your website, your landing pages today, right now, which you can see the true impact. So while you do that, you don't necessarily have to make those changes directly on the site right now. You could use optimization tool to see the comparison. So obviously A/B test is one of the things that we strongly recommend that you always do to see the changes that you're making, it's something that I think will work. Like maybe you think it will work for your visitor. It might not work the same way that we think it will work, which is why there is no alternative of doing A/B test. And there are some great tools, some paid ones, some free ones. So I'll talk about that. But I kind of want to continue what Cassandra was talking about, like the heat mapping. What tool, like if you use the chat and share, like, and what tool do you guys use, if you use any tool for heat mapping or eye tracking technology per se? While you guys answer that, what do you guys use internally, Cassandra, for your clients?
Yeah. We're a huge fan of Crazy Egg. There's a lot out there, though. I know also Hotjar is one that's used a lot. There's all kinds of options, and they're all thankfully fairly easy to use.
Yeah.
Some of them can be more costly than others, so that's why, if you're doing it yourself, of course, compare your options. If you're looking to go to a company like VisiSites, ask if they're including it. That's why we include it for all of our customers, because then they're not having to have additional cost, using those.
Absolutely. That's part of your subscription that covers the CMS as well as the in the analytics that comes behind with it as well, right? I am quickly going to share my screen and walk you guys through some of the tools that you could use. Right, so please let me know if you can see my screen.
Looks great.
Okay, awesome. It's on our website. It's Microsoft. So this is a great alternative of the paid tools. Obviously, I personally used Hotjar for many years, and recently they started capping the number of sessions that you could record. Regardless, like, for the recording, if you keep deleting them, they will just cap it how many people you can record per day. So obviously, I strongly recommend trying this out. I had the opportunity to meet the person who's actually behind the product at one of the conferences in Content Marketing World. Really great guy. So they are doing a lot of work behind this platform, which is literally exactly very similar to what Hotjar does. Hotjar has pretty extensive feature like form tagging and funnel tracking as well, which you could probably use it. But free tools like this, great alternative. If you sign up, it will give you a code. Literally, if you don't know how to add this the tracking code to your website, ask your developer. They'll be once it is added to the header section, you'll be able to track it. So I'm going to show you literally behind the scene how it looks. This is one of our sister company. We are launching as part of the whole AI. The game is happening, like everyone is so after AI content, but obviously Google today actually released an official statement saying you could use AI, however it has to be human edited as long as it's can meet the need of the user, then it should be okay, right? So I strongly recommend looking out for that news as well. Anyway, so coming to AI, coming to Clarity, the eye tracking. So this is something that you can see once you log in. You'll see the dashboard, which has tons of data. You can see live user. One of the interesting things here is the rage click. So people just click randomly in the middle of nowhere. But one of the other interesting thing that I like about this is the JavaScript errors. So if you are not tech savvy, which is absolutely okay, take this information to your developer, who'll be able to tell you what those errors are and how they can resolve it. Because sometimes when we visit the site, because we have the cache and browser cache, that kind of helps us see the page the way we want it to see, but sometimes the page might be broken. So that's really great resources. You can see I have 1.2% of session that has JavaScript error. I can see the recording, what errors are and how those are breaking my site. Now, if I go to the recording, it kind of shows exactly what they're doing on your site. Obviously, it's literally recording each steps, each click, and then how they're going through. Obviously, this is just an example. This site gets quite a lot of traffic from blog, and you can see what visitors are doing on the specific page. What Cassandra was showing, which is awesome, the heat mapping, which I love as well. One of the things that I think you could utilize this for to see, we always think, above the fold content is important, which is important, but you can see how far below the fold your traffics are going. So you can just go to scroll from PC and they'll tell you how far they're going. So you can scroll down to see by let's say 3 scroll, I lost 30% of my visitor. If I keep scrolling more, I will see by the time I went to pricing option, I already lost 56% of my my traffic. For our site, we have a button at the top which takes you down to the pricing option. Anyway, so you can see all this information and take a decision based on everything that you see, Obviously, click-wise as well, you can see what sections they're clicking on each pages. So I strongly recommend trying this options out, trying this tool out.
If I can add
Yeah,
something on scrolling, it was interesting. I believe the study showed it's like 80 or 81% of users now, they view the content in the first three screenfuls. So when you're talking about scrolling,
yeah.
users are trained to scroll now, social media, right? But it's really the first three screenfuls. So when you're looking at that scroll map and what percentage of users you're losing, you're going to see it get lower and lower and really probably drop off after those first three big
Yeah.
scrolls.
That's exactly what is happening. So if I go towards the end by footer, all these, even the sign up for the newsletter is only 27% out of like all the traffic that I got, right? So that kind of, it's real hard data. It might be different for your case. Maybe your industry is that unicorn that we talked about at the beginning. However, I think the data Cassandra is showing, talking about this like pretty generic and pretty standard for most of the, or across the industry, different industries. Awesome. So once you, obviously that's something for you to see what's happening on your site, you take decision. These are the changes I want to make. This is how I'm going to make changes. The button, the text, whatever, every little changes that you make can have positive impact towards your conversion. So the next tool which you could utilize, also free, Google Optimize. They are sunsetting it by I think September 30th, they mentioned. But until then, utilize it. There are other tools we definitely could use. I think there's another tool called Mutiny. They're pretty expensive. There are other platforms which you could also use for personalization for your website. Again, paid tools, obviously you have to pay a subscription fee for now. You could definitely use the free version. Now, setting up Google Optimizely on your website is a little tricky, but there are step-by-step guides. So this is the link you can go where it kind of shows how do you add the tags. Again, if you're not tech savvy, ask someone that they know or your web developer, they will be able to help you with that. You have to install Google Optimize with your Google Analytics so that they work hand in hand. You can gather the data from there and they can communicate between platforms as well. And I'm going to show you how exactly you're going to set it up. So let's assume that you created an account, which is completely free. Then you install the code and you have it ready. And once you go to your Clarity account, your Optimize account, you will see something like this. And then you can see that we are running two different A/B changes on our website, on our main page, as well as our inbound lead form. Now I can just create a new one. So when you create a new one, you just give it a name. I'll just like do it for our pricing page. So I'll just copy our pricing page, paste it here, and then I'll give it a name. Let's just say pricing page A/B test. I'll run an A/B test and then I'll say create, and they will give you a bunch of options. And here there are some setups that you need to do. To be honest, at the beginning, it might look like there's a lot that you need to work on, but honestly, it's very straightforward. All you have to do is just say add variant, and that will give you, or you can give it a name like new version or changes or whatever. You say done, that will add the options for you here. I strongly recommend leaving everything as is, 50% weight, so that if you get, let's say 100 visitors, 50 of them will go to original version and then 50% will go to your variant one, so you can compare the data as well. I'll come back to editing this option in a bit. And then you have the page targeting. So obviously this is the page that changes are going to work on. And then you also have to connect your Google Analytics, which I'll come back to in a second. So here, I'll just say this is the variant we're creating. So we'll say edit. Now what it does, since the code is in the backend or in the behind your website code, it can read the page as is. So this is how a visitor will see your page, and they can mimic exactly how your page is, including CSS and HTML and everything else. Now here, this is our pricing page. Now, if you want to, let's say, make any changes to this specific page or any like title, or maybe you have any special offer, whatever the case is, you literally just click on it. And then you say on the right side, sorry, you can't see because of the zoom, you say edit element, and you can say edit text. So that will let you edit anything that you want. So similarly, maybe from this page, you want to change the button. You can always do that. You can click on the button and select edit element and edit text, right? You can even change the link as well. So where this button is linking to, you want to try different options from your button. What I would recommend, be cautious, do not make quite a lot of changes at once, because then you wouldn't know which changes will kind of make that impact, because there's a lot to kind of track. And often I personally get excited, let's change everything, and then I get like, what happened? I don't know what's causing the uptick or downtick, whatever the case is. Once you're done making changes, I'll just for example, I'll just actually show you live. Say edit text, and I'll just say probably create an account. And once you do that, you say done, and that's it. Literally make any changes you want on the page. Like even if I want to change this button, I can just click on it, change the button, and change the link as well, and I'll hit save. So it will show you how many changes you have, preferably a couple of changes, button, text, especially like I think the messaging that you have on the page. That's very important. Like, do you see what messaging works for you, and you can make those changes to see what's happening on that page as well. Now, once you're done with this, all you have to do is just scroll down. They're a little slow, probably that's why they're discontinuing the platform. You go down, and then you connect your Google Analytics. All you have to do is a link to Google Analytics, and then choose what view you are linking it to. And once you're done with that, then you come down and choose objectives. So what objectives are you trying to achieve from this A/B test? Are you trying to increase your conversion? So because of this button change, I'm probably trying to send more traffic to our marketplace signup. So I'll just say, create custom if you don't have your objective created. Very straightforward, like what exactly you want them to do, but I'll just choose one from our existing one since you already have it. So marketplace completed sign up, and then that's it. Like you literally don't have to do anything else. Go at the top and then say start. As soon as you press the start button, then Google will start to show you a new version to 50% of the people based on the variant that you have it here. And then once you're done with the A/B test, it can run up to like 7 days, 30 days, 15 days, whatever period that you want to decide to kind of run your report on. And then you can see what variant is grading you the conversion you want. And one thing to note here, which is very important, the way Google will kind of summarize the results is based on the objective. So by making that change, did my visitor or are my visitors converting more to a specific goal that I specified here, which is why you need to make sure that there's an objective. I don't think you can even continue without the objective. So that's very crucial as well. I don't want to complicate things, and that's literally all I wanted to share. 2 things: the tool to kind of track what exactly your visitors are doing on your website, and the tool to make changes to your site without making changes to like the actual page, because you don't know what impact that will have. So without knowing the significant impact that your changes can bring, try the tools. It's free, and then go from there. And if you see that your changes are getting traction, your changes are making impact, make the changes permanent. Change the button to exactly what you had during the A/B test, and then see what happens. If you don't want to run A/B test, you can just have one version running and then make changes so that you can run it for like a week and then see what that changes is bringing to your site, or what impact it is making to your conversion rate. Because often what happens, if you want to make changes to your main site, that takes dev resources. You need other people. If you don't have CMS like VisiSites, it probably will be difficult for you to edit, or WordPress, like any other CMS that you use. So strongly recommend trying the tool and then go from there. And obviously, if you have any questions, you can reach out to either of us, and we'll be more than happy to help you with that. Awesome. So I think we're towards the end. We have a couple of minutes to take any questions that if you might have. If you do have any questions, please mention that in the Q&A and the chat section, and then we'll take some of the questions. So while we wait, I was making note while you were presenting, Cassandra, and one thing that I wanted to kind of ask you, obviously you do have quite a lot of clients that you work with, different industry, different sector, different types of clients. One of the things that we find it challenging, or we see this nowadays, we have quite a lot of top of the funnel content. So we drive traffic to our blog pages, quite a lot of them. And we produce more informational content, a lot of them. So they come, they spend sometimes, and then they go from there. Obviously, bounce rate is significantly higher in terms of going to different pages. What are the things that you see that works for your client scenarios like that? How would you rectify this challenge, which I'm sure lots of people has exactly the same challenges with their websites as well?
To get them to spend more time on the page, is that the
correct? Yeah.
I love that question. One of the biggest things, and I should have probably mentioned this at the beginning with content structure and why it's helpful specifically in getting people to spend more time on your page, is because it also makes your page more interactive, right? So again, not to harp on the attention span thing, but we need stimulation all the time, right? As a society now. And so when you give them things on the page that they can click, open and close, hover over to view something, things like that, and just make the page more interactive, you might have you heard the term gamify? Like gamifying in marketing? Making things where you're just making it super interactive so they're almost playing with it. But while they're playing with it, they're learning about your business. We see those interactive elements cause them to spend a lot more time, move further down the page, all that.
That's awesome. One of the other questions that I had was, how does personalization, plays a factor in conversion rate? And how do you go about that?
On the website?
Yeah.
So let me add, with personalization, you mean personalization like for your brand or personalization to the person that's viewing?
To the person that are viewing. So obviously if you have listed different types of audience, and you have dedicated landing pages for specific audience, right? What factors of, how do you see that plays in your customer with your customers?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Wanted to make sure I understood the question correctly. I think one of the biggest things is that affects is building trust with people, right? So we talk a lot in marketing about like social proof, right? Testimonials, things like that. One of the other, as a trust builder, one of the other things that builds trust is, do you know my industry? Do you know how to talk about, my whatever? Or do you know who I am as your client, right? Am I your ideal client? And when I see content, so, what you were talking about with content creation earlier on, when that content's, I'm reading it and I see myself in what I'm reading, I'm way more likely to have trust right away, right? That's also something I didn't talk about today that's huge, I'm sure you know, is video content. Using video content on the website to create that relationship and that personal touch is huge. Even I tell our clients all the time, like, even if you can sit down with your phone in your office and film a 30-second introductory, hi, here's who I am, here's why I do what I do, people are going to eat that up more than reading the same paragraph that you just said in the video.
That makes sense, absolutely. One of the other things that we do from personalization perspective, we use, those are obviously tools that if your business in that capacity, you could implement that. We use a platform called Clearbit, which is similar to like ZoomInfo, but they have proprietary technology where they can track IP address, and then tell you what companies they're from. So you can actually personalize based on that. So there's quite a few things that we do in combination with Google Optimizer as well as the Clearbit technology, which actually works very well. But I don't think there is a affordable solution for that. It's pretty pricey, I would say.
Yeah, I think though what you bring up is a really good point. Is when you're using tools like that, whether it's ZoomInfo or something else, and you're tracking what types of users are coming to your website, the demographic and everything, and then also what types of users those are that are converting, maybe you just have like a newsletter sign up, right? Yeah. And you start to segment your audience, and you can get really personalized in the messaging you're sending them, because that person who came to you has recently searched this issue related to your industry, and now you can send them messages about that issue. You see really, really effective things there, but you're right, it is a little more costly, but it can be worth it if it's used well.
Absolutely, especially I think for ABM. Again, we're drifting away in lots of tangent here. The topic.
We can go forever down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, you're right. Definitely, I think if it is for ABM campaign, I think that might work very well. We try that for ABM, designing, because you cannot literally make a landing page for every single target account that you have. So you might as well use a tool which will help you, customize those landing pages for each and every single visit that you get to those landing pages from ABM campaign. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Looks like we have a question. Let's see. I'm a content writer for my company. Can you suggest any tips for organizing content that has been proven to increase conversion? multiple small paragraphs under one section, bullet lists, etc. Our designers typically want us to write large paragraphs to ensure SEO, but this amount of text seems distracting to readers. You're 100% correct. It is distracting to readers. I make a joke. I probably shouldn't make this joke in our industry, but I talk a lot about how we write content now for bots, not for people. We
Yeah.
write content for bots. We design content for people. That is why my personal favorite solution to what you're asking is those toggles and tabs. So if you have a ton of content, let's say you do your competitor analysis and you're like, man, for this area, we really have to have, 1,000+ word page, right? And you don't want this page that's scrolling forever or, whatever it is you're trying to fit in the design boundaries. I've found those toggles, tabs, where you're breaking things up into smaller sections. So let's say you have a list, a content group, again, you have a list. I'm trying to think of an example off the top of my head, and each of those list items has a short paragraph under it, right? Turn that into toggles, and now suddenly what would have been 3 screenfuls of content for one thing is one nice, neat section, and they can click to the area they care about. So your user finds what they want quickly, and the bots have what they want, which is a lot of content.
Well, I appreciate you taking the questions. Let me see. If anyone else, it looks like there is no other questions right now. But I think we covered quite a lot of the information today. It's very, very helpful and useful. Definitely people, the audience can go and implement those changes, or at least the tactics that you mentioned, and implement them for literally from today onward. Well, thank you very much. Any last thought that you want to share with the audience?
I like you said, I think we covered everything. Just A/B testing. I would say if you take the list that I provided and then the tools that Nizam provided and use them together, even if you're having to write, like our one participant, you're having to write, 1,000 or 2,000 words of skyscraper content, you'll be able to do it in a successful way. We're
I
all
love
right
the
there with you on that struggle, though.
I love the analogy skyscraper content for sure. Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Cassandra, for joining us. Really appreciate that. And thank you everybody for joining in. If you have attended late, we will send you the recording, so don't worry about that. And again, I think there are some the audience, the attendees that need to connect with us also. I'll just email them as well. You will hear from both content and visit sites in case you want to learn more about any of the thing that we presented today, or anything else that you want to learn about our company or our services as well. By all means, do so. And yeah, we'll definitely see you next time. Before I go, just one quick announcement. We do have a very exciting webinar, or that'll be actually a fireside chat scheduled with Google, 28th of February, talking about Martin from Google. So he is the development relationship expert. So he will be talking about technical SEO best practices. Strongly recommend you sign up for that. It's already on our website. We'll also send you an invite as well. And yeah, until then, everyone take care. Thank you very much, Cassandra, for joining us today.
Thank you. Had a great time. Thanks all for joining.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.